Recording. Yeah, it should let you record as well. I can always edit this out, but it is recording now.
It is. Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay. All
Micheal,
right. We're live. Wow.
here we
Get
go.
to get to have some way long-winded answers.
Have some water, get settled in.
My smart answers.
It's one of my favorite waters, so it just seems very appropriate for today. Excellent.
Cool.
But so thank you so much again, Micheal, for joining me. I am super
hmm
excited to have my friend and my colleague, Micheal Johnson, on the Contrology Circle podcast today. And what else can I say? How many wonderful things. You bring so many years of experience,
Practice. Yeah.
practice and experience and
Yep.
teaching to the method and the all of us. And can you please share a little bit about your background in how you first came to start to learn
Sure.
contrology, your
Sure.
teachers?
My name is Micheal Johnson. First of all, I live in New York City and run MatFit, MATFIT, and it's a trademark that I use for social media to be fit on and off the mat. So we provide like astrology, that's kind of like your guide off the mat, and the other stuff is just techniques that we use to be on the mat, whether it be your mobility work or your Pilates mat or yoga or basic yoga or things like that, or just warm-ups. Um, so that's me, and that's where I'm from. But how I got into the Pilates method of body conditioning, I was a young person. I was living in Utah. I got introduced to it when I was 15 or 16 years old. And at that point in my life, I was an athlete or skier and, trying to make the varsity lacrosse team or, cross country team or whatever my interests were. And my mom hired Kim Lee to come over to the house, and we had obtained this thing called the Reformer, like
Yes.
early as 1983. You know,
A good one.
this is crazy. From Kenny Endelman, the guy who now makes equipment worldwide.
Balanced body.
Balanced Body, yeah. And so, anyways, Kim Lee had a good relationship with Kenny and helped design some of those first machines, right? And anyways, Kim Lee was generation of Ron Fletcher, and he was the original Hollywood guy, right? That got into Hollywood and taught a lot of famous people there. But anyways, Kim's mother lived in Salt Lake, so often he would come up and train my mom and my mom's girlfriends and stuff like that. We got acclimated to having him come. So I started very early at around 16 years of age, maybe, yeah, 15, 16. And did that and would go back to, the fall, go to boarding school. I was going to boarding school in Massachusetts. And I could feel the difference in the training from having Pilates all summer and then, working with Kim in the mat and then going to, run, which was my cross country practice and then lacrosse practice, and then come train all summer. And those first steps on the grass, I can remember my body felt differently. So I had this kind of experience with Pilates in the summers, go to school, come home, train with Pilates in the summers, go away to school, and this was my first kind of introduction is how it was influenced in my life. Like, here's this tool, and I'm going to take the tool away.
You
Here's
had
this,
that,
here's
you had
this
that
kind of,
viable
yeah,
back.
here's this like stimulus, and then here, I take it away from you.
See how you
And so
do.
that was kind of like my, and I looked into Pilates at the time. I saw he was a skier, which was important to me. So, um, and I saw longevity, or I saw a guy that where there was a system where there was the long game. Okay. And I didn't see a lot of exercise systems in the world that didn't have long games other than martial arts or maybe yoga.
Sure.
Okay. So my grandfather was a professional athlete and a soccer player. So he influenced me to early on, stretch, which was the yoga. And, he played for the Lebanese national team and traveled all over the world and played. And so early on, he's like, look, you need to pick things that are going to give you longevity. And this is, blah, 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 blah,
And
blah.
injury prevention, right?
Right. Right. So I kind of like stuck with it. Anyways, long-winded short, there was only a couple choices at the matter to really learn further than say outside of Kim.
Mm-hmm.
There's California, right, which is Ron. And then there was like Eve Gentry at Physical Mind Institute
Which
in
you had
New Mexico, which I used to have
huge.
conversations with her over the phone. I never traveled down there, but we used to like, she would teach me and talk to me about it. And, the whole imprint your spine into the mat. And that was, Eve Gentry's cues and things like that was cool. And then I ended up, okay, graduating high school, going to college, and then end up in college was interesting going back and forth to having Pilates and then not Pilates and then same thing. There wasn't
Right.
anything where I was going to school. So it was always a lot of mat work and this type of thing or the warm up. I always thought Pilates mat was the warm up to my like lacrosse practice.
It's great. It's a great way to look at it.
Right. So it always was something that I just kind of prepped my body to then go do an event, which I always looked at Joseph Pilates was as a prep work or a warm up.
Now, do you, if you don't mind me asking, do you call it, do you reference it as Pilates or do you reference it as Contrology? And are there
Well, that's
different?
just kind of like back in the days we didn't know what to call it and we didn't know that it was called Contrology, so we
No,
adopted the name Pilates.
that's right. Or
But
body.
now, yeah, but now that I think I'm 44 years into it, I can understand just as a motor control kind of mobility method.
Please speak to more of that.
So it's more of a how, like, in the beginning, you kind of like, what is these tools and what are these shapes and why are we, going upside down and putting our feet in leather straps and, you
Yeah,
know, and it's so interesting to me that how people thought that how to do the method was the way to do it.
right.
But the more you practice it and the more you study it, if you're an aficionado or would like this endeavor, this is an endeavor, personal endeavor for me, was that I always like wanted to know why Joseph Pilates was such a healer. Not so much how to style the method into a compile like a composed like you know
Sequence.
sequencing of things. I always wanted to learn what was it in 1900 that healed all those people and what was the technology of his day that informed the person how to have a better functional being,
And
right? Because it's like, look, if a guy's like, if it was advertised in our day, like, look, you help people with injured warriors with no limbs and no,
that,
well, how did that person function with the technology of the day, and how do they get themselves out of bed without an arm or without a leg? They had
sure.
to have, some kind of control over their body or mechanism or some therapeutic type, way of returning them back to life, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't matter if I was in front of Kim Lee's eyes or Eve Gentry's eyes or any of these, say, students that were fashioning the method, like kind of like designers, like, Kim Lee's designer jeans, Romana's designer jeans, like, you know,
Yeah.
Jay Grimes straight cut fit, you know,
No,
Bob Lincoln's, his,
here's more boot camp.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, you know, there was black and white, and then there's the gray, that's Bob, like,
Very much.
yeah. And so, everybody has their fashion, but really it all just leads you back to yourself. Like the whole system's really designed to be a self-study.
It is. And I always say that. I'm like, we should be calling it return to self.
Yourself.
Because
Yeah.
that is, and I've been
Right.
saying that for years, but I think
So do I refer to the method as Pilates? It's like literally motor control. Like you're learning to control these workspaces and these proprioceptional pieces that Joe Pilates is trying to help your nervous system remodel.
yes,
is really the kind of the hallmark of his system, I think, with the eyes and the domes rebuilding and the tension production and this teaching the nervous. I always tell people in my lectures, or at least how my understanding of it is that he is getting your nervous system to be used like it was before the ages of 1.
please expand on that.
That's it. So what I believe is, like, I always tell people, like, okay, here's a newborn, okay, right? And they're 6 weeks into it and they're just like, can't walk, can't lift their head, can't do anything. And so they grab your finger, right? So why does this 6-week-old child, right, have a stronger grip strength than an adult male? Like measure pound for pound,
Yeah.
right? If that child grabbed your finger, it's literally, is it going to like pull it off your hand?
Yes.
Like it's a death grip, right?
Right.
So what are they using? They don't have muscle. There's no like strength training. There's no like what he's 6 weeks old out of, what is it about that child? Why do they have a grip strength stronger? And that's what I'm saying. How do we get to the brain's ability to use that connective tissue like you did when you were 6 weeks old?
Love that.
Okay, that's really, I think, what redefined the powerhouse, and that scope and lens is then what is it about the nervous system that can exhibit power at any range, like a child,
Yes.
and then produce power and give power, start to locomote. Like
it's the locomotion aspect of things. Your point
yeah.
is something you always say, and it's such an important piece of the work.
Yeah,
And
I think he's getting you ready to locomote. And this is the ready to run, the ready to dance, ready. That's why I said it's a ready system. Like I said, it's a warm up to go play lacrosse or go ski or, whatever your endeavor was or is or whatever. And I always looked at it was this mobility kind of tool. It is. It's a mobility system for gymnastics.
yes.
Or calisthenics or whatever. So
that's great. That's great.
So that in his day, it was just really the framework for what we would call street workouts today, or what the kids are doing, like going up over the bar, muscle ups and hang, and then muscle ups, and then this is what Joe was trying to get you that strong to,
Sure.
be military strong. Let's say, like like you go to camp and dips and run and like push-ups and
squats. It is a one-leg squats.
Right. I mean,
I was just looking at the archives again, like just a few pictures that I had, and there's the one of him doing like a one-leg squat.
Yeah.
No equipment. He's just like, I'm just gonna do it. Just drop it down and drop it right back up. And I'm like, that.
Well,
and then I
body
think
control is
surface.
His body control looks like the circus performers of his day. So I think, and the gymnasts and acrobats. So there's this element of, the yoga control and what we've now hyperbolized, these methods. And now kids are doing incredible things, like incredible, right? Yeah. And everybody's doing these, straddle press handstands. And that's really what the method is really trying to do, is to give you the building blocks to do a straddle press handstand.
There's
Like,
so it's always going to come to the handstand. We've talked about this before. We're always just jump up and
or diving or
right.
some kind of flip or gymnast shape or some kind of tumbling or uh, uh, but with the mobility lens, there's all that in there, right? So that's why it goes back to motor control or locomotion.
Yes.
So yeah, do we call it contrology? I can kind of understand his definition. If we use his science definition and say contrology, what is it? Motor control of the brain. So we know the brain has this motor control. We know motor cortex is for balance and seeing your inner ear on the horizon. So contrology, if you listen to his words, is what? Go slow and smoothly like a cat, so your whole body's in it. So then what is that? It sounds like mobility guys of today's word. Don't move this, but move this. And now we're moving limb independent of body versus like plank. Now we're moving body independent of limb. So there's all of that within his work. And it's just more you practice it, the more functional I got. Okay. So didn't become
Yeah.
style or Ramona style or Jay Grimes style or Kim Lee style. It just got more functional for me.
Right. For sure.
Period.
And
Yeah.
it allows you to do and prepares you for your life.
Yeah, it's just joint preparation. Like I keep saying, if you just keep going at any age and you keep preparing your joints for life, then it doesn't matter what you do. Like I said, I like to fly fish now. So
That's important.
you know what I mean? But being in the river and feeling the river currents and then, all the things that go along with the casting and has to do with controlling the rod. It's like golf or,
Yes.
so there's a whole aspect to fly fishing that Pilates gives me,
Do
you
you have
know.
yours? You have your
I do. Yeah, I was going to show you those guys
yes,
because,
please.
we're talking about the system a lot, right? And when you tie flies for a living, I'm a fly tyer. Okay. So you can see this is like a hook in there, right? This catches fish. But
Yes.
there's a system and sequence and by which we tie these feathers in to get this effect, right? So that it looks like this. And then same thing with making different shapes. So you have ways in which you tie this stuff in to get an effect,
It's
right?
an underground water party.
Same thing with like, different materials. So now I can use, synthetic hair or it's like this is the craniculum that people weave in their hair. That
Okay.
would just buy at
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
beauty stores like that,
Yeah.
right? So, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the framework in which we learn by is super important. And it's just like tying a fly. There's proportions by
Position.
which to get the effect, right?
Yeah.
And Joe's measure is in the system. That's why all the different equipment gets you into all the positions that are necessary to do his work or in his measure. And so it's just visiting these measuring tools every week to organize your nervous system to make these shapes, right? It's like getting into this shape versus this shape
Yes. Yes.
versus, using, this longer material to get into, making this longer shape in long spine or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I
It's
look at my artwork
big.
as very, very similar to what it is in art. Joseph Pilates is an art, and all these wonderful artists like Romana and Jay Grimes and Creola Tier and Bernard King and others, Alan Herdman and people that in Europe and all over the world were your teacher, Lawrence Hayward, and others that were saying, "Hey, I've fashioned this cool thing. You're gonna feel better, right?
I think it is that simple. It is
Yeah,
that simple. Every
you're gonna
time.
feel better. Just do this. I promise you, or something like,
It's
like,
not
and
something
however they
you
marketed that and like whoever they influenced those teachers or the teachers before me or whatever. And that's how I got involved because of the challenges in, hey, let me show you this.
That's it.
And he got on there and there was a challenge to it. I think that's what's kept me in the room. There's the challenge of
It's the challenge.
experiencing yourself in this tool versus that tool versus that tool. And it's endless. It's like a playground and a puzzle that your brain wants to solve, and you get 80 years to solve this puzzle. It's like
No, we find
it's
it.
not your weekly crossword puzzle on the
No,
Sunday
no.
Times. No, it's you get a little longer to practice this, and that's what I like about it is, when I'm in my 44th year practicing this, and it gets redefined the more I get like educated and trying to learn how to help others, like whether the kinesiology, learning about how our proprioception drives locomotion,
Yes.
how then, you can do all the body, but if you don't do the perception, you might tie the knot in harder. And there's all this, we're learning now what Joe Pilates was doing. Like I said, old technology,
Yeah.
we're learning, with the eye chart and things like that, that applies in today's technology, what we're learning about proprioception and eyesight and eye exercises and eye drills. We're experiencing that today, right? People still need that input.
And it is a tool with which we can again quantify the what is happening in the body. And just like your practice, every time you come to the practice, none of us are the
Mm.
same any given day or every day the same. So it's always something that you're able to do, and it's meeting us there and being present with ourselves every day.
Well, it's like, could you kick a soccer ball 40 yards the same way with both feet? And I think
Right.
coordinating your body to this level is, I think, what Joe was trying to do by having these simple exercises on a daily basis. I tell people that one leg circle is really to just navigate your foot down the stair when you walk down the stairs.
They're hard. It's true
You're
though.
one like your brain's deciding, is it safe there, there, there? Like, honestly.
Tactile feedback, I think, of
Mm,
anything as
mm.
well. The equipment is
That's why I
one.
get up on there, do the step up, step down, get on the chairs. It teaches you like literally life. There's, and what happens, I was, what happens when we're older? So I have a privilege to work with Dr. Debbie here in New York for many, many years, and she runs a
Mhm.
longevity center. And
Fantastic.
occasionally she has me people go help them go to their apartments to help them with their rehab. And since I am a kinesiologist and can find where in their perception they are not receiving input, which drives them scared to walk. So this is
Yes.
like a real life situation. This isn't teaching Pilates. This is
No,
like
this is how to
is like someone's got to
like.
get up out of their chair and get moving and get stronger and locomote because of they need the what muscle mass and tension in their legs. And that's why I say don't skip leg day, because I see
Don't
what
skip
happens when you
a
I've seen what happens when people skip
It's
leg
like,
day.
that's right. Yes. Not
No,
good.
and so what I'm seeing a lot could all be prevented if they just did these daily things. What I think Joe wrote in, his day, return to life, you could just put 2025 on there. I don't think what you're seeing in population has changed so much because of it's just called body care.
It is
If
self-care.
he was
We all
just really just like a wellness system in and of itself, and he was just trying to
right.
teach you how to shower, teach you how to take care of yourself, teach you how to use the loofah and get your. I mean, he was doing lymph rubbing before tapping
The
became like
lymphatic drainage,
popular today.
he was the lymphatic drainage king, apparently.
You know what I
We
mean? So I think he was a pioneer or an ab like a kind of like Jack LaLanne, maybe an
faithful.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, kind of figure in terms of like his consciousness. Like he was piercing into the modern world with these old world technologies that still last today. I think they're not really, I don't want to call them old home remedies, but literally they're lasting techniques that last hundreds of years.
Yes, absolutely. And there
And
is,
that
sorry.
and I do think it is that nervous system because what I've seen is that if we don't return this nervous system to the fascial tensegrity is what I'm going to say, which keeps the joints in the middle of the joint. When the joints collapse to one side of the body, then we have a breakdown in the fascial structures. Okay. And not muscle can do that. It's usually how our brain decides to use that space. Does that make sense?
It does to
Right.
me.
And
Yes.
so if what I see is when we don't teach the brain to return to this reflex of the ages before one, we become muscle driven athletes. And these are the most riddled, pained individuals in the entire world
Mm,
because they're trying to locate which muscle drives the joint. And it's not that. It's
not
it's your mind that picks your arm up, and it's not just one muscle. So they chase the dragon, I call it.
sure.
And they never get well because their brain's now locked into this muscle moves the joint, and it's not true. It's the fascia.
That moves it.
So when you, and I've done this before with people who've had like serious knee pain and ankle pains and hamstring issues and that were yogis and things like this. And I said, no, man, you need to learn how to like tighten up your fascia. And
How'd
I
that go?
converted them to say like the fascia conversion, I call it,
Right.
and say it's a lab, right? We'll take you through this like 12-week like conversion of you getting your foot to glute strong. Literally all their ankle pains, all their knee pains, all their hamstring issues, all their back pain, everything disappeared because we taught them that doming of the feet, right? So when I got their foot strong, basically what happened, the whole entire like chain changes in the human.
And
And
that is,
I didn't do one ab exercise and not one spine roll. All this was is about getting the mechanism of their brain and the reflex of their feet to get stronger to be able to hold the dome of their feet.
and this is one thing that's so important. And I was just speaking about this today in class, but I have said it for years to make people understand my belief for Contrology is that, and that was shared with me, is that it is to restore the natural domes of our body. And
Yeah.
every body is different. So what can we do to restore the natural domes of the body? So therefore we have an integrated support system with which to support our bodies.
Yeah. And then
On
how
any
we could put
day.
a definition on that would be
Mhm.
tensegrity. So,
Exactly. Yes.
right. So if you underword the word tensegrity, our joints and everything is held through these tensional structures of tensegrity.
Yes.
Okay. So,
And
and that's what gives us this web of, motion and locomotion, how our brain is perceiving information and driving output, right? And
yeah.
receiving ground forces that ripple up through the feet.
And I don't think
So,
enough people talk about that aspect of the work.
and that's what I meant by ready to run. He's ready, you
Always
ready to
on the ready.
absorb the force of the foot and to produce force off the foot.
Yes.
So that's the athlete, right? Getting that
Yes.
foot in and out of the 45. And so when I did a lot of this plyometrics work, and I'm just going to say that's what it is, right? It really showed me the plyometrics ability within the Pilates and Contrology system. And there's different tenets of what I found over my years of teaching. There's go slow, have control, go together like you're in a community with class members, and then go fast like we're training you for your sport and like have control.
That's
So
it.
there is like other speeds and flows in which we can go, right? So it's not always this, even though I live in the slow control, like, compartment to this workout, there's these other plyo parts to it with the jumping board and getting the foot ready
Oh
to
yeah.
getting all this stuff.
Receive
It's
the
so
force.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's complete, that's what it is. It's
Yes.
like I said, you be in the Pilates playground for 80 years.
Yeah. It's a good, but that's to my next question is what do you consider the most crucial element of Joseph Pilates' original work and how do we go about preserving that?
Well, it's just first, I think with someone like me, I've had access to the archives. and I've studied, and then, done other people's systems and mastered their systems, and then still looked at the archives like, wait, there's something else going on here.
Something we're not getting.
Right. So,
And
right.
you've
So
been very fortunate to have.
44 years, I've had a good study of that and worked, in Sean's studio for, geez, 14, 15, 16, I can't even, 16 years. I don't even know. It's a long time.
Yes.
Right. And in the beginning, he let us look at the videos and he let us look at, I mean, literally everything. And I was so curious. Yeah. It was so
I will
open.
always say it was always
Yeah. Oh,
super
incredible. Incredible. You got it. And,
Yes.
and so what ends up happening is you get curious, right? Well, if we're doing it like this and it looks like that, then you see this picture book kind of thing going on and you're like, wait a minute. And so you starting to look, but there's no video. So it really was a self-study
for sure.
and your self-interpretation. As I said, you get all these different styles or maybe interpretations like designer jeans, like, DKNY jeans versus, like Levi's versus,
And
Abercrombie and Fitch or
yeah,
whatever, whatever. But
what that
what,
fit you.
yeah, what's going on here? And so I was very lucky to have that exposure. So that
Yeah.
one, I think that's one, exposure to the archives. Second of all, that gives you kind of a different measure because we know that in those archival photos, there was the 10-point fitness test at any age. And then this is like a different measure. So when I discovered this thing,
Yeah,
there
no.
was really like a fitness test. It was like going to your high school, like how far can you jump and how high can you know what I mean, reach forward and touch your
And it's really
toes and
hard. Could you imagine doing that? Like if you just walked in, they're like,
right,
this is
right. This is these 10 things I want to measure where you're at, right?
yeah, like
And
fail.
then and then we realized, like looking at the photos, that in the reformer there were these white dots, and so you can see where the posture was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that became another question mark for me because then I have friends as old as you to 40 plus years into this and
Yes.
getting the microscopes out,
Yes.
and
We're like, what else are
looking
we
at the
missing?
reformer
Totally.
photos and seeing
Yes.
the spring and then measuring, the strap length according to the reformer length, and then expanding that out and then really getting actual lengths of
Yes.
straps and
Yes.
actual lengths of reformers and what we know and comparing it to. So we had a different measure.
Would you please speak to that? Because I know we have talked about the straps and how you had changed straps.
So for instance, like say you have an 80-inch reformer.
Yes.
Today, people are selling an 80-inch strap.
Right.
Okay. And this is the standard of today's reformers. And I don't care if it's Current Concepts, Grotz, Legacy, they're somewhere in that length, around 80
Mm-hmm.
inches. So we believe, or I believe wholeheartedly, they were 12 inches shorter.
Shorter.
Not 9 inches, but actually 12 inches shorter.
Okay. Okay.
You got to allow room for the clip.
Yes.
Because even when you cut it 9 inches shorter, it's still not as short as his.
Right.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay. So if you took the 80-inch strap and say you just cut a foot off of it, or say 9 inches off, say you're really scared.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not doing that.
Like
Yeah.
first time I told somebody to do this, they got really scared. And I
They're
said, well,
like,
I'll buy you an extra set of leather. Just cut
oh,
it.
that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For
Just,
sure.
just go buy yourself a leather strap. Let's just cut this one and then,
But
whatever.
there's a lot of
So
panic.
that's how you have to experiment, right? With the
Yeah.
different levels and
Yes.
because like each reformer, he did the short spine, for instance, and everything on third gear. So
Right.
that's why the straps were, so say when you bring it from first gear to third gear, you've just given 9 inches of
Big.
flexibility on
Yeah.
your strap.
That's a big deal,
Okay.
for sure.
9 inches.
That's,
So think about it. He's in third gear, and then everything, you couldn't push your legs out. So it was straight up like the tower.
oh
So
yeah.
he's giving you 9 inches of flexibility, and you still can't push your legs out. It was straight up. And that's for you to sit
Oh,
at
it's
a
great.
90-degree angle at the floor. So now if you were doing the rowing, Now you're sitting
Yeah.
90-degree angle. He wanted these angles everywhere, even when you sit in his chair. You
Yes.
tip the chair upside down, you're sitting at that angle. That angle is the same angle as one of his fitness tests. That's the
And
same
that,
angle as your teaser, right? So,
which we were talking about this before, is the angle of the high chair and how the front lip is higher. But that is to descend the spine. That angle is to descend the hip. So there's a hip crease, but you're
yeah,
getting that extra length through the tailbone. You're getting that extra length.
he does both, right? So we know
Right.
there's part of the spinal engine. Say if I'm in a bicycle, so all the bike pros and the PTs, get the spine and bicyclists to pelvic tuck, glute tuck. They even go
Right.
like, right? So they're even in like, and that's how they get there to be glute dominant on the bicycles.
Yes. Right.
Soon
Understood.
as they go anterior tilt, pain in the everywhere in the cyclist. So same thing in a boxer. You're still gonna tuck, and you got this spinal engine to rotate off of. So I think that's similar to where Joe's positioning was, like similar to generate power on a bicyclist. It's just being in double leg stretch, basically.
Right. Yeah.
There's all these power positions, but then he also teaches you getting equipment to get the opposite also, right? So yes, that's my point in saying this. So you get in the high chair, there's both. And that's what I love about his system. That's why I said the mobility of it is brilliant because yes, I want to get you into these power positions, but then I'm going to lengthen you out of this and see what the function in lifting there
And the
too. Yeah.
baby chair. That's
Yeah.
what I'm, the baby chair was the one that I was referring to with this.
100%.
But the
Yeah.
height is still the same. But that baby chair with that the decrease, it's perfect. It's really
Right. Those
perfect.
those angles are super restorative too,
Yeah,
right? And just
they are.
getting the joints to relax in certain ways too,
And not
right?
being
So
that gripped position, which a lot of people tend to be in that position when you're
yeah,
asked
so that
to sit
you can
upright.
almost say like his wounded chair when you just sit there in the chair, it's a
Yes,
restorative position for your
right.
back and everything. It's
Yes, yeah,
restorative. It's
yeah.
like it's like standing on those spiky rocks or whatever. It's like, you
Perfect.
know, it puts you in a certain position that's really nice for your body. Anyways, Joe had a measure, and I think that uh maybe not his students followed his measure, so they got a different method. It's like if we're making cake and you have a different measuring, your cake is going to taste a little different than Joe's cake.
Yeah,
And
understood. If you're
and so I think that's what's changed.
recipe,
You want to see what's changed is the measureship change.
they have. They have.
Okay. So, and then people rally around the loyalty of that particular fashion designer, and that becomes, their way of fashioning, this, say, Joe Pilates equipment.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what happens. And even today, like with all the competition that's going on with all the new style reformers being made and everything, it's the same thing. They're fashioning it to their experience and what they want to do on the equipment, which is
But they're
super cool.
totally innovation is wonderful.
And I
But
went to some of these classes, so just to speak to some of the new forms, very challenging,
sure.
very good, and and your brain is going to solve these puzzles as well. Was it Joe's puzzle? No. Was it,
Correct.
your method and what you're doing? Great. Yeah, these are fun exercise. And me, who I'm a person who knows how to control my body, found it super fun and super challenging.
And that's important too. It's important to jump into those classes and see what is out there. And then
Yeah.
you can discern for yourself what
Yeah.
you feel it is and what it is not for you.
And even the way I kind of like practicing now with such a harsh mobility lens is because I'm seeing how good it makes my body feel and knits my nervous system back together.
Effective for sure.
So I'm still staying in that lane for now, but it may not be for everybody else too, because they
Absolutely.
want to style or fit the jeans on the way they want to fit them, which is cool. So unity through diversity, the bottom line is it's helping a lot of people.
That's it. And
Bottom line, there's more people on his equipment than any other time in my lifetime. And
yes.
the success of Pilates is, yeah, if you're getting paid to fashion it the way you want to fashion it, it's a success,
Mhm.
because it's really about your experience with yourself and how you want to relate that to others. I don't think it's this way or that way, or if it makes you experience yourself in a profound way, then wow, that person has really lit the light switch in you, and that's wonderful, and that's what teachers are for, right? To
No,
guide, inspire you, and trying to help you smooth the corners of this big process called the Pilates, exercise room, like this big mountain you got to climb,
and it
and
isn't intimidating. I mean, we were referring to back when we were in the programs. Man, you never got away with anything. Like it was just for hours,
well,
right?
and it's like, look at each person along the way is like their effort to try to preserve the work in the way in which they see it.
And how
And
they
not everybody sees it the same way. So
know
you're
what
going to
they
get
don't.
like different approaches. Like, for instance, like, okay, so this would be considered breaking all the rules, but I made people do the reformer work. Like they were holding a barbell on their back, and then
Mhm.
made them do the footwork like that. Their spine completely off the mat, except their head, shoulders, and tailbone.
How'd that
So what
go?
is that? What is that? That is your what? Pumping on the chair, just like this, getting up off the chair. So you're not pulled in. When you get up off the chair, you're like anterior tilted.
Yeah.
So I made them do that, and people, oh my God, like, and I had this like, whoo moment, going on in the room, but it's just pretty neat, it's pretty neat
It
to
is
see.
wonderful to see. It really is. And what do you feel about archival equipment or some of the old equipment making a comeback and taking center stage and the importance of that as well?
Well, look, it's the same thing that I have in my fly tying business. You have all these tool makers making tools,
Mm,
but they never ask the fly tyer, and I'm just using an example. So they make these tools, and all the tools are like made at a 90-degree angle like this, okay? And then you put your hands on this 90-degree angle and you tie, right? But your hands naturally sit at a 23-degree angle like the watchmakers. So all the watchmakers make all their tools at a 23-degree angle.
right.
So you'd think that the tool maker would then want to make this device so that we could set our hands at a 23-degree angle and tie versus this. So you see the angle of the elbow and the shoulders?
Yes.
So like the same thing with Pilates equipment. We got a lot of tool makers making Pilates tools, but they're not the athletes on the tools.
Can you say that?
And I would like to go back and remake. I'd like to maker's point of view. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I would love to get together with old, like, say information of Joe's reformer, even with the curved here and why. I know why. I have a really good reason why I think he did have the curve there.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's like certain things with the foot bar. So even in his day, that foot bar was rounded, and that's the same thing I'm talking about, is that rounded edge allowed you to be in external rotation. So when you did the reformer work, you could get into the external. Now, if you grab the bars here, you have a lot of internal rotation load today, and a lot of women experience pain in the method right here on that. And it's harder for them to find this. Now, you
Sure.
and I have talked about this extensively because he also had a footboard
Yes.
on his reformers that's not made today either to help people find that external rotation in the wrist and the footboard to have a flatter surface, like your hands are on the floor, like
That's
this,
right.
kind of thing. And
Yeah.
those are things are lost because I've studied the method, but equipment makers aren't going out and making extension boards for people's hands.
No, they are not.
There you go. So,
But maybe they should.
But right,
Like,
and his was probably
sure,
permanent, and there'd be a
for
lot
sure.
of fear and drilling a hole through your former bar, but it's not going to weaken your bar. It's just gonna
But listen, we drilled them through our,
right. Yeah, your
our
Cadillac pulls,
ladder barrel.
and it
No,
didn't weaken
Cadillac,
you.
you don't want to be drilling through Cadillac pulls, but they did. And on the
You see
ladder
what I
barrel,
mean?
for sure,
Yeah, there, and even
it
like
moves.
we even talked about like you and I putting springs at the bottom of the ladder barrel, so when you went up into, say you had like tension at your hands, yeah,
That's
from
it,
the
which is
which
proximal
is
to
super good, yeah, which is
and
same thing as you do on the
for
reformer,
sure.
but being able to have a closed chain there, right? So like there's a lot of things I think he did in his day, maybe, right, that we don't know, but you can see from um like the angles and the say what I'm trying to say, this measure he had, and that's why I think it was like, look, I'm gonna make your body better in 10 sessions. I'm gonna make your body in 20 sessions feel different. In 30 sessions, you're gonna know that we're gonna hit these angles a little better. And there
Yeah.
was a map. There
Yes,
was literally seriously a map.
there's a map to it.
And and a lot like in his fitness day, there were other books where you got the exercise of the pictures. You're to perform them at the best of your ability for 3 weeks until you went on to the next one.
That's when you
And
go,
then
yeah,
you go to the next set of exercises for 3 weeks, and then so week,
that's when
that one there. Here, I'll show it real quick. That's a lot like Joe's Days Return to Life. So this came out the same time period, right? So
this is
here's
our,
the pit. Here's
yeah,
a picture book. There's front leg pull, right? So or
that,
side or whatever, and or side leg kick. So here's the instructions. Here's the picture book, and you're to just do these lessons for 3 weeks, and then don't do the next lesson until you've done this one for 3 weeks.
that's it. And that's
And
how,
that was Joe's work. Those are his like Joe's instructions, like
yes.
do this before that, right? So
I think maybe you can speak to this. My experience is that there's, you know, the work started to come out. Everybody got super excited about it, and it became really popular again, doing the original exercises. But the element that was missing was the component of it is a gradual system. You don't just jump into it and do these all. You're doing these ones and then you're adding on because there is a succession
well,
of the exercise well.
here's where this is where the fashion designer genes come in.
I've always
Because
go ahead.
here's where like, and it's all okay, but it's like we're all going to get the genes on,
Sure.
but our strategies on how to get the gene over the fat calves might be different. No, I just gave you an image, right?
I
So
understand. Yes.
so literally what separates trainers from PT and other trainers and other systems is our strategies.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. For
That's
sure.
it.
It
And
is.
how we're gonna now, how did we feel it? How did we get it from our information from our teacher? How did we deliver it 10 times and saw the audience doesn't really care? How did I need to change it the next 10 times so that I got my point across without looking crazy? And
And
was it me generating the effect?
that's right.
So a lot of this carrying on the work is like, how did I receive it? How am I gonna teach it? And did it
Translate.
stick?
Yeah.
Did it get there? Or should I have put it in a book or in a video and then said refer to page
Pictures.
8? Right.
Such great pictures.
You see what I mean? Like literally,
Yeah.
like what work better in our day of learning right now? So does this work better? Like, or does the way we're doing it, bombarding people with our Instagram feeds, with how to,
Yeah.
or YouTube feeds on how to, and kind of like, ruling from the like, authoritative of, thumb, I would call it. And it's really not about that. It's about
No.
your ability to control the workspace. So it's not this way or that way. It's your nervous system's ability to have power in that moment. That's why I said, let's redefine Contrology. It's a nervous system training tool, the proprioception to remodel your fascia. It's a really a white tissue method, I call it, not a really a red tissue method. So what we're doing is training the brain to have these reflexes and use ourselves, like I said, before the ages of 1. And the more you do that, your fascia will knit together in this tensegrity and you'll feel young again. And that's why Joseph Pilates meant will return you to life. Because when the fascia is healthy and hydrated, you have a buoyant step. It can absorb the ground forces and it can produce a force off the ground. When you have unhealthy fascia at the feet, man, they're heavy footed.
Mm-hmm.
They're like a herd of buffalo coming down the hallway. That person, has got a lot of like probably upstream pain in the hips or in their shock absorbers above because they're just
That's impact.
no absorbing the ground, right? So that's an unhealthy fascial system.
Right.
So, yeah, I think he was a fascia guy. And I think the technology of 1900s and how he got people better was a fascial remodeling system and getting that proprioception remodeled. And that's what healed injuries. And they didn't have, let's take this out. I think what they did was,
Let's move around.
let's just grind this out until it got smooth again, until you can control those workspaces again. And then tension production came as you got stronger, right? And that's literally how we heal injuries in today's world. And those principles still hold well today. Let's do this isometric until now we can hover, until we know we can control the workspace. It's just that people are in a rush today.
It's very instantaneous. People want that
right.
patient.
We got this like, oh my God, I'm going to get you out of surgery and you're not broken in 6 weeks. You're not broken. Yay. Yeah. Sure lead you through this, like, emotional roller coaster feeling like I'm broken, I'm never going to walk again or whatever. Surgeries do that, people psychologically. So I think in his day, they were pretty mentally tough. They were self-organized. They went into the gym. They did their homework. They knew the workspaces. It was going to get better. There was a map. They saw the map on the wall. I think in our day, we were told what to do. It was more authoritative kind of thing. And we had pictures, but then it was stylized a certain way.
And there was
so that we had to adhere to the style.
Right.
And then, it was like a dance recital. You didn't, a cracker episode. And there was a lot of that went on in our day, and now you can see 20 years later, they're backing it all up and being super safe, but then it doesn't look like the way we practice because now they're super safe. Okay. But so, is there, it's just in a movement practice, you're always going to have someone injured, right? In the circus and athletics and, every team has their injuries. You can't let the injuries dictate the athleticism. And what we've seen, at least in my observation, is let those injuries in the method dictate the athleticism that Joe Pilates created. And, let's face it, 1% of 1% of 1% of the population do calisthenics. Like literally, if we had 10,000 people, we have maybe like 1 or 2 guys that like to do calisthenic out of 10,000.
Yes.
Okay. Like, let's just face the reality here. Joseph Pilates' method is calisthenics.
Yes.
Okay. And so what you're seeing is it being watered down from that point on so that it could fit the other 10,000 people in the room. But the goal is to do the calisthenics, you see, to get your body in shape at any age to meet these measures.
Yes.
Just like calisthenics has a measure, Joseph Pilates had a measure. So that's what I'm getting at here. Romana's system had a different measure. Okay. And her system is fabulous.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
In its totality.
And it serves so many people throughout the world as
The
well.
whole like blue card, the gold card, and right. Look, yeah, measure. So it's kind of weird, you know. So, and even Creole at her day probably was doing things different. She was just 2 blocks away from them. So, and even when I was going to Chicago and getting lessons from Juanita Lopez up there, what a badass that girl was, right? She was a strong one, right? Like, my goodness, like you
Yeah.
practiced with her for 3 weeks and your body, was changed forever. And that's because she was trying to be the best and compete with Romana, and she was the best, and she did compete with Romana, and her students were good.
Yeah.
And yeah, remember in the day, so they'd come
It's
down to Chicago, and she had some strong ass people would come down from Chicago.
there were when you saw, and I think we were speaking about this before, but you can kind of tell whose people's teachers were in how they hit that mat, right? And what
And
they
in our day, yes, 100%.
all the different personalities,
Yeah.
all that aside, once you
Yep.
hit the mat, that is where the practice begins. And
Yeah.
that is
And
the I felt always that was our equalizer for all of us. We were in this together. We were definitely suffering many times, but we were there in spirit and to support each other. I didn't, there.
no, our practice was a really, and she ran it like a, well, it ran like an old, well, he was Czech, so I'll just say it like that, Drago, right? It was like a Eastern European gymnastics gym. Okay. And that's the discipline I like. Yeah, that I teach, like, my daily mat. Like when I teach, I was like, look, these are daily drills. These
Yes.
are like what you're supposed to do to keep your body alive. This is body care. This is, and a
Self-care.
lot of people have made this mobility system a workout, which is cool because they fashioned those genes to work out like that. Like Pilatesologies, I think there's 82 versions of the mat workout.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you can get 82
That
variations of mat workout. Now, that's not Joseph Pilates' work, is it?
I,
No,
no.
that's interpretations of Joseph
Yes.
Pilates' work.
I was like, wait
So
a second.
even in our day, so don't blame it on like Kim
No,
Lee or Jay Grimes or
no,
Romana.
no.
You have
There's no blame.
82 different variations of mat work on the Pilatesology website right now.
Yeah.
So that's, you see, that's the day we
True.
have. We have 82 flavors. In my day, we
Yeah.
only had 4 flavors. Kim
We,
Lee, Ron
yeah,
Fletcher, right. Had Romana,
yeah,
and I had like what? That was it. You see what I mean?
pretty much.
Now we
Yes.
have like worldwide, you have 50,000, like flavors of, you know, how to fashion the genes of Pilates.
Right.
And
It's
that's
true.
okay. You see what I mean? And like I said, the way I approach it today at my 44 years is, man, it makes my body feel so good, but you know what I mean? But it may not be for you. You may like, oh, what's that? You see what I mean? So it's
True.
all about where you're at and like what's your long game, and it doesn't matter which teacher you have because it ends up about you practicing you on the mat every day.
Meeting yourself every single day, whatever that looks like, because we are not the same person every single day as how we hit the mat or the equipment. And
And here's the thing, if you want to be good at it, notice the people that are the best at what they do. They're really selfish. They spend a lot of time with themselves
mm,
doing the work.
it's
They're
true.
very narcissistic. You know what I mean? Almost to the point, looking at themselves in the mirror for 3 hours a day. You know what I mean? I'm just being, but those are the
Um,
best practitioners.
yes.
I mean, I'm just looking at it like we're going to look at it. They're the ones going to spend 3 hours at the practice every week, or, you know what I mean? Because they want to, do that. For me, it was just a long game. I
They're very
noticed the difference between when I didn't do Pilates and when I did do Pilates, and I was like, hey, this makes me feel better, so I'm going to do this. And that's
that's it.
what becomes my life practice. That's why Mat Fit, you know, because it really is the heart and soul of it. And when you practice the tenets of the mat, I go over to the equipment to help me refine what I'm doing on my mat, right? And it's really kind of cool, right? So
Yes,
now
it is.
I'm in the class, I'm like, I'm on the chair and I'm doing table and I've got my one leg out, you know, and I'm like, now I'm in tendon stretch and I really place myself in those shapes and forms, you know, like in
Yes.
my daily mat that I'm imagining myself on the equipment and in these positions everywhere elsewhere. And I think that's what practicing for a long period of time gives you, that
Yes.
global view of the room.
And that feedback and that
Yes.
understanding and that wisdom that comes along with, we'll say, years in the method, but yes, the years of self practice that has to
Hmm.
be there. Are
And
you?
that's always the key to your teaching as well, is like how well are you informed? And
Oof,
that's how what you're giving to others, right? Like I said, I could go to this fabulous conference, but if I haven't practiced what I saw at the conference and then I give it to another, does it feel good to me? No. I want
no,
to be able to own it, don't I? And
it
then I
has to
can
get.
deliver it. And then even when even when I deliver, I'm going to watch to see the effect. I want to see the effect, or maybe I have to simplify it. Just because I get it doesn't mean somebody else gets it.
And that's one thing that was presented to me early on, and we had spoken to this point before. If somebody is not getting it, it's not them, it's you. There has,
It,
as the instructor, it is our
yeah,
make them understand. And it can't be like osmosis, because if that were the case, we have to be able to be mindful of our cues, to be mindful of our tactile feedback, to be mindful of how every student learns, because we all learn differently. Can you speak to that?
simple. Like,
What's
yeah,
that?
look how simple the cues were
So
in his
simple.
instructions,
Yeah,
right? They're not
I mean,
like literally like, read the like, and it's not that
just,
hard.
he's like,
No.
just here I am, just
There.
do
There it
it,
is.
just
That's
do
it.
that. And it is that simple. And those are the instructions. They're not a lot of instructions. They're
No.
pretty
And
basic.
that's how simple it is. There's a lot of just doing, right? And then experiencing the work, right? And I think that's it. And even when I would try to simplify, it's how much can I simplify even more?
Bring it down to the basics.
Yeah. And then, and that's hard to do, but it really is, because I don't understand 10 verbs in one sentence. Like, what's the cue? Like, there's a great book, The Art of Coaching. It's a
I,
super good book. It's about an NFL guy coaching 21-year-olds, and they're under enormous amounts of pressure. And he's like, how much do you think they hear?
right.
Right. And in a split second, you're asking them to go this, hit the ground, go, like this. And he's like, so what are you telling them to do? You have to simplify.
Very.
Otherwise, they're not going to understand you. It's the same thing when someone's under stress on the reformer. One word they hear out of the 5 words that come out of your mouth.
Yes. So pick that.
One word. I mean, literally, they may not hear the other 4 that come after that.
Yeah.
And simplifying the instructions is really the art of coaching, and
It
how
really
you get the effect, and then making that person's imagination meet the function. They're hard to come by, and we've experienced them. And this is what I celebrate about Ramana,
is there.
is her simplicity, to make you work harder than you've ever worked out in your life, but just the simplest cue. That was her
Yes.
genius. That was literally her
Yeah.
genius. And and she was like a cosmic flame shower. Like her. She had a big force and energy behind her, and so you
Mm,
wanted to do what she was telling you to do.
for
Okay,
sure.
and there was that part of that. Does that make sense?
It
And
does.
so that that's how I look at like styles of teaching, and how her words were so simple. She never taught anybody how to do a roll up, but it was like reach, bend forward, get the bar over your
And
toes.
it's that, as opposed to
roll back,
Unfold
reach. She
your
didn't
spine.
teach you how to roll
But
up or touch every vertebra or, none of this stuff.
But it's always a great reminder to go back and read his work and his words, because it is unfold your spine,
Yeah.
fold your spine. Like, it is that simple.
Well, it's like in the saw, right? Chin to the right collarbone. That means you're looking backwards. That doesn't mean you're looking at your leg. You're looking backwards.
Right, right.
No, I mean, just simple head cues will definitely change the position of your spine and changes the exercise, right? So then then today's world, or at least in all the modern schools, nobody's bringing the chin to the collarbone. They're all looking down the barrel of their chest. So there's a change. So what's the change? They didn't read the instructions,
And why is
or
it?
they're doing their own style.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that's what as a longtime student, will see. No, Joe's instructions said that,
Mm,
you're doing that. So
mm,
then are you doing Joe's work, or you have a reason why you're doing it? Okay. And there might be, because there's an area of the body you want them to be aware with. But if you follow Joe's instructions, he says clearly put the chin on the collarbone.
mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? So
And it's so
that's a struggle that I
unfortunate.
have had for 40 years. Like, look, here's simple black and white. Did you read it, or do you want to do your own thing?
Right. And how do those words inspire you to then do the work and go a little bit deeper into the practice?
Well, then it just is like, okay, I think it's like the measure again. It goes back to the measures, and you look
Mm,
at the 10-point fitness test. One of the measuring is just like literally lay flat on your back, bring your arms out in front, and then with your tailbone down, can you bring your feet to meet your eyes? And that's your teaser position. That's the same angle as the chair position, everything we talked about today. But it's hard if the hamstring length is inhibiting that to come up to that level.
for
That's your
sure.
short spine, right? Those were your tower in the Cadillac. These are the same angles and measures.
Yes.
So everywhere in the map, his method, or I call it the map, you're hitting this angle. And so it's just really every day and every year getting you to get this angle for that mobility in your nervous system. And so for me, that's really what it is about those measures. Because if mobility doesn't lie, like your
Nope.
hip mobility doesn't lie, like what's your range of motion in your joint, right?
Right.
So it has to improve what you're doing. So I think what his measure was mobility measures, and there were angles in which he wanted you to hit. And that's what keeps you alive at 70 and 80. And he did his fitness test at 82, I think, in the test.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's
Okay, so it shows you that even at 82, I have this mobility, or demonstrating this kind of mobility in my skeleton. And I think that's a large part of him standing in the snow older, and is just like showing you, look, if you follow my map, you'll get this.
Yes, he was.
Like, and I think that's really what, like, he was a demonstrator
He
of
was a
his
doer.
method. Yeah. And so I think that's something to follow. Like someone with me, okay, so I'm 44 years into it. I probably got another 40 years of practice,
Hmm.
hopefully, right? So what's that 40 years going to look like? It's going to take the
It's gonna
information I
be
learned from the first 40 years and just try to improve it and maintain that mobility I gained in those
yes.
workspaces. And you got to be able to hit a measure every year. So it's like, okay, did your system work? And I'm going to hit these 10-point fitness test every year, and that will let me know whether my exercise program is up to measure.
And that's it's quantifiable. Again, it's quantifiable work.
Yeah. So
And
that just sums it up. Like I had a yoga teacher say to me a long time ago, this kind of sums it up. Exercise systems aren't your personal view. And so what I've seen in the Pilates industry is everybody's there is a measure. His exercise That's what I'm trying to get at. Not your personal view of it, she said. A
Mm,
90-degree angle is a 90-degree angle, not what you think and feel,
right.
because what you think and feel can be wrong when measured, right?
Yeah.
So you're down there in plank and you think you're at a 90-degree angle of the wrist, but until they come put something down next to your wrist, you're like, oh
I
my
don't
God, that's 90 degrees. Holy shit, I didn't know that was 90 degrees, right? So it's the
Yes.
same thing with being in the reformer, putting your feet
Yes.
up against the shoulder blocks. It's the same nonsense. There's a measure to his system. So, and if you go outside the boundaries, then you may get a different tasting chocolate chip cookie,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Joe used this chocolate and you may be using this chocolate, you know. Joe only
Understand.
put this amount of sugar in it. You're putting this amount of sugar in it. So when we get those type of changes, you change the recipe. You change the spring tension. You change the angles. If the straps
And
are
then
too
it just
long,
gets further and further away from the
and
method.
then what happens is you
Is it-
have to style it to the strap length then. So if
Mm,
his straps are 12 inches shorter and yours are 12 inches longer, then you're fashioning all your angles off of this 12-inch strap length.
mhm.
And it's not that you can't do it, you can do it, but the spring
Sure.
tension is different.
It's going to be different. Very true.
Yeah. It's like picking up a 8-pound weight versus a 15-pound weight. Your angles, are going to change on that.
And that
And
load
so,
is impact that very differently.
and it would be interesting to like go back to his old reformers because his first gear was like a
Ugh,
negative spring. It was not really a full tension spring like
right.
Romana had designed these new reformers. So
Mm-hmm.
Romana's system doesn't change the gears. In Joe's order, there's a lot of gear changing.
Mm.
Okay. And maybe because she didn't want you to, change the gears a lot and there's
Could have
up
been.
and down the
Yes.
flow. And I
Yeah.
mean, there's all Kim Lee's same thing. He had an order to his thing. So you spent time at a position, you didn't get up and off the box or up and off the equipment because you had the athlete for 55 minutes, so you had this systematic approach to get to the workspaces, right? And
Yes.
I could see his organization skills to get the best what he could for the time spent. So same thing with her, but in his Joe's method, we know there's a lot of gear changes, right? Because the strap lengths were different, and he had
Yes.
different lengths of straps to do different things,
In the student. That's right. Yes. And
right?
different spring lengths.
And
Gee,
different box lengths.
bogs up to the box point.
Yeah, so
How
like
box
his
angles would
boxes, there was boxes that were not like this normal short boxes. There were
Yes.
actually what we call half boxes today, but there were different measures, right?
Sure.
And the different angles and different reformers that were on the floor and different reformers were off the floor and different, like he had a lot going on.
But then there was a reason for all of it, though. It wasn't just like it was mismatched as what it would look to the human eye like this is crazy chaos. There was reason
It
for
was like a remedial gymnastics or
it.
circus going on in there.
Absolutely. And they made their own equipment. So there is so much
Yeah.
of that that was made and handcrafted to to their skill sets.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's like technology of that day. And so what was that having a moving sled add to your mobility?
That's right.
So like if they have like a wall spring, so now like the wall springs are a great gymnastics tool, right? You can still see how all the gymnasts today still use all these warm-ups, okay, and their band work and everything using rubber bands now, okay? But adding the sled allows the same amount of tension to go through the system without overloading one section of the
Mm.
joint with too much spring tension. So adding the sled now moves it's a three-dimensional, like almost like Fibonacci circle.
Yes.
There's this constant Fibonacci, and he designed his reformer length to Fibonacci numbers
Mm. It's
according to my friends who measured it live and then realized it was a universal Fibonacci sequence.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
I would love, that's an
That's
Instagram live we got to do.
yeah. So yeah, so that's a really cool like thing to come up with because that's why his equipment when you put your feet out on the center of the blocks on the mat, it's universal for everybody. There's
Yes.
some Fibonacci number there or something.
Mm,
So there is measure. That's what I'm saying. There is a measure to his system,
yes.
and maybe that's what wasn't passed on. Is all I'm trying to say.
I think that is missing in some of the translation of some of the work. And on that, I want to be mindful of your time. I could go on for hours with you,
Yeah,
Micheal.
yeah, yeah.
But
Keep
in close,
going.
I was like, perfect. I would love to know what your thought is. He speaks of mind, body, and spirit. So would you be able to speak to that and your understanding
Well,
of
he
that and the way?
probably was a new ager in his day, right? Right, maybe doing astrology and things
He
like
was
this,
doing
or he,
astrology. He was.
yes, and he, you know, had a lot of books and philosophical books and, about this quest for self and, this type of thing, right? So I think what he was trying to realize is when you use his equipment, you're under tension, you're realizing yourself, it's gonna like refresh your spirit, like because you're going through this endeavor your mind has to control and it gets happy when you've completed the task. So a lot of his like
Okay,
probably prerequisite to his happiness is like, oh great, I just did that, you know?
give it a time.
Which
Should
makes
be.
anybody happy when they accomplish goals or some kind of like feat. And so
But we
these are just like little mini feats around the room that he said is a prerequisite to happiness. So mind, body, spirit. You got to use your mind, imagination. You got to control the workspace, which elevates the spirit. And I think he thought that this type of physical fitness endeavor, this rinsing of the body, this oxygenation, this,
clean,
getting rid of the tiredness or this like laziness or what he
lethargy.
perceived as, poisons in the blood, you know, he saw this as an invigorating wellness tool.
Mm, yes. And he was a
And
spiritualist. We know from the books in his collection that he was quite spiritual.
yeah, he was into that quest for self, let's just call it, right?
Yeah, yes.
And so his tools reflect, I think he needed a lot of tactile feedback because his tools help you locate those areas in the body and say in mobility circles nowadays, Pilates to me are the best mobility tools on the planet.
Yes.
Okay, so with that lens, I mean, he's created a remarkable, well-supported system that will help anybody with any injury or any athletic endeavor to make them feel better, to want to do more. So I
Right.
think that's really the healing quality. And look, however you fashion it, everybody feels great. So
Yeah.
everybody's getting those jeans to fit. And so if they fit
Yeah.
you and you're doing it your way, then you're putting your jeans on yourself.
Regardless of what you look like, if it's making you feel better in your body,
That's it.
that's your
So
doing.
that's why it's a success
Right.
because the brain likes these puzzles or these mind body endeavors. Okay,
Yeah.
whether it's Pilates or whether it's yoga or a martial arts map, this is even the martial artists understood this, that
Mhm.
it keeps the brain alive.
And that's it. And there's that constant feedback for that as well.
That's it. So you keep those circuits open, and that's really necessary to keep the other things away, like Alzheimer's and stuff. And
Yes.
it's hydrating you. I mean, you're really like the whole system's a hydration system, really keep your body alive and
Yeah.
informational highway, right? So when you
Yes.
realize it's just trying to keep you alive and body care, keep your
Yes.
feet alive, keep your hands alive, keep your like joints, strong. And like I said, a nervous system that can exhibit power.
That's it.
Because when it starts to break down, it doesn't exhibit power. And that's when we compensate and get under pain. So his was just a real gentle motor control system to keep it alive,
And the
so
fact that,
that
sorry, go ahead.
no, 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 that's it. So you could stand up, walk, go down the stairs and go get groceries and come home. Like
Everyday life.
literally, yeah, like, you
And, I,
know,
at that time it was just that they weren't worried about, I think their troubles and their thoughts were different, but during that time it was, this is everyday life, this is just something else we do so we can return to life.
Yeah,
Simple
and
as
that's as simple as that, and that's been my focus. Now, whether I get to get in front of a lot of people or one person, whatever, or I get to help them with a perspective I have today. And it may not look like a big, long, drawn out workout, but what I'm doing is trying to touch your nervous system in a way I know that will heal.
that's it.
Because that's again, my focus has been how did Joe use your body to heal itself? And a lot of it, I think the future in fitness is going to be the eyes.
Yeah.
Future fitness is the
Yes.
eyes.
I
Mr. Pilates was, could be celebrated for having a symmetrical body with only one eye. Very hard to
much,
achieve.
very much.
And his eye chart's super important to do the eye exercises.
That was
Um,
homework. Lawrence did say, I'll never forget the first time I saw it, I was like, what is that? And then, but his answer to me, we had discussed on your Instagram live, it was just like so simple, like it's an eye chart. Like, why don't you know that? And I was like, wait, what? And I just remember being like, oh, this is, and just then going through it. And
I'd like to discuss like
a bit,
where's the other ones? That 12 one, right? The two six-pointed stars. Now, was that Joe's or was that Lawrence's?
which behind
Yeah.
the ones that I have here,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
no, so those were just ones that I picked up. So during that time, everybody was doing eye exercises.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that's very trendy, I guess, for
And
them.
there's the Horizon one because that
Yes,
H one is a really one used today in a lot of people's
yes.
seminars is to up, down, cross, down here, these vectors, and then crossing like this and up
You
and
have to do
down.
the
So
cross. That was very specific to me that you have to do the
yeah,
diagonals.
diagonal ones, yeah, up, down, left, right,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
it's the
yeah,
whole thing. And if you don't have that, you can use a clock, right? So it wasn't,
right.
people were making it like, oh, it's this, is this. No, it was presented to me, it was very just basic, like this was your homework, and apparently he could tell if you had done your homework, so he was a fan of homework. Are you a fan of homework?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because like I even today in like today's lesson, I had the students be able to pick out their weaker side where their proprioception gap was, and I shown it was driving their mechanics where they can't see.
Right.
So then if you can strengthen the eyeballs in those, there's like a muscle, then your joints will open up because your shoulder joint is basically the eye socket.
Yes,
Your hip sockets are basically just eye sockets. So
I love this. Yes, I
and
agree.
so basically by, even you like if I'm in a stretch like this, say I stretch my arm back here like this. Now I move my eyes right and move my eyes left. I can feel the muscles in my shoulder work.
Yes.
There's the motor control. So your eyes and your motor control unit are controlling joint space. So that's
Yeah.
what Joseph Pilates' method really was. Where's the eyes? Where's the mobility? Things like that.
And where do you think he'd say about his method today? What do you think he would feel about all the different methods, specifically about his method and how it's being presented today?
The same thing he said when he was alive. They're not teaching it the way he's teaching it 2 blocks away from him, even when he was alive.
Yeah.
They ran down the road and thought they were better than him or had experienced it or knew better. And so they're not teaching his system. So he'd say the same thing today that he did when he was alive.
Yes.
That's what I think.
And
It's easy to say that because it's proof. Like even in his day, he said they're not. This is not what.
but do you
He,
believe that? Yes. Do you believe that the work always would have evolved? He was very forward thinking.
um, it's going to because there was no measure.
Mm,
Gymnastics has a measure. Nobody's going outside those measures. I mean, the kids are doing better today because we have better programming in terms of preparation.
mm.
That's why we'd have better Pilates if we were doing gymnastics preparations for the Pilates work would be better.
Well, and
But
you said,
we don't have gymnasts using the system. We have other people using the system, so we have that fashionable genes. Just like a martial artist would fashion the system different, okay? And Kim Lee was a martial artist, so I got to watch a martial artist fashion it, and he was one of the most brilliant
well,
trainers alive.
yes,
That cat changed people's bodies more than I've ever seen anybody change people's bodies, and he's the original contemporary guy, and he was a genius. And so there again, there's a whole nother system, a whole nother way of using the equipment, and it was absolutely brilliant.
yes.
And it's not Romana's Pilates, it wasn't Eve Gentry's Pilates, it wasn't even Ron Fletcher's Pilates, it was Kim Lee. And
And
I was
that's
so privileged to be able to work with somebody and see the unity through diversity in the system. And this really will peel back your classical eyes. It will peel back all your contemporary eyes and just say, hey, this is just someone's experience, and he got results, and he got effect, and he got, like, how could you? The people look gorgeous doing his system. My
yeah.
God.
But
And the way but
they
that was the effect they wanted. So they got what they wanted using Pilates. How cool is that?
and I think it becomes as simple as once we connect to our breath and to each other, connecting first to our breath, to
Mm.
ourselves, and then to each other, we're unstoppable. It
It's
just,
universal, right? So this
yes,
stuff is like, that's what I'm saying, is like it really just comes back to, do you like to practice on this in preference, Because my preference is to be on the map. And when I get on the reformer, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool, You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
But my preference is to do the map.
Yes.
Okay. But if I don't do a reformer, like say I'll get like I don't know, it's like going for a run.
Oh,
You just want to get that run in, right? So that's it.
some
So
days,
that's what his equipment's like. That you can become attached to the effects. And a certain piece of equipment have different effects. And you have to just revisit the room on and on and on again. Like I said, it take you 80 years to get around the room, but
okay.
it's okay because all those are like, hey, I really like that. And different points, they become different important to you. It's like, oh, I got to overcome this ankle thing, or I got this
Sure.
knee thing, or and how you use yourself. And that's what's brilliant about Contrology, is because it's with you like a best friend all the way through.
Yes. All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't
Almost like,
speak,
yeah.
oh, it's this way or that. No, it's been my way the whole entire time because I'm the one doing it. It wasn't Jay Grimes doing it for me. It wasn't, my contemporaries doing it for me. It was me,
That's
you
it.
know? And so then it becomes your way. And then hopefully you can fall in love with that process because you're the one that was giving yourself the self-care and love that you need.
And that's it. And I think it is that basic because I know from those of us that have been in the industry for a really long time, we have had periods of love hate with our Pilates practice. And it's just something that naturally had occurred. But then to find your way
I,
back,
yeah, I think what happens is you just got to see where you're conflicted.
yes,
So we can take the conflict away and be like, oh, yeah, I have to take that sentence structure away because it's not serving me or anybody else in the world. And when you can do that and you just fall in love with the practice again, it's just all unity through diversity. Yeah, let that person do what they want or whatever. And if they,
there's no judgment. It should not,
no, exactly. So it just becomes like, hey, let's get a better you. And that's it.
right? And a better us.
Today, it's like if we were to look at the mind, body, spirit thing today. So, what did I do for my body today? Okay, I did my mat work. What did I do with my mind today? I meditated. Now, what did I do with my spirit? I lived by one of my affirmations in my meditation. And one of my affirmations is what? I reject every evil thought that comes into my mind. So that elevates my spirit. But if I go down the stinky thinking route, what happens? Right? Ooh, right. So your practice is a lot like that. How can you keep it alive and keep you interested in yourself and it just really is like I said, a measure. And at the end of the year, it's kind of neat. Like, oh yeah, I still got that. And
Right.
that elevates the spirit, like I said, like a game or something, right? Because
It is.
everybody, if even I got 4 9-year-olds, two, girls, two boys, and we did like a measure of their fitness test and how they could bend forward, you know how excited they'd all be?
Oh, forget it. Yes.
Right. How high can you jump? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
That's
what I mean?
yes,
Literally like a game, right? So, Pilates is just a big romper room game for us.
it's a big game of Twitter.
So
Oh, it really is.
it's it. So just hopefully it provides some wellness and happiness in your body. You get around earth a little better. That's why I say fix the feet. Because all my athletes, if we fix the feet, you're going to do more. And, this is a big topic for me because I went for many, 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 many years, and first generation teachers, second generation teachers all missed my foot problem.
Mm,
And you know what I mean? Because they're so focused on the powerhouse, and really my
yes,
mechanics of my foot was really driving everything. So
yes.
for me, this is a really humdinger for me because I actually had an issue with my foot. And
Mm,
this doesn't just Pilates teachers, this is every PT I knew,
wow.
all missed it. Okay. And my number one complaint was always my foot, my foot, my foot, my foot. Right. And
Yeah.
so, like, I tell you, my foot feels so much better today because I've learned how to manage that. But fix your feet, and I
Vic,
feel so much better because I can do more. And when my
that's it.
feet hurt me, I didn't care to. It was just temporary to do all this stuff up here. Just when I got up and had to walk down the street, I had to use my feet.
Yes. And that's the
So
importance of that.
I think Joseph Pilates' method and way I focus so much on the feet in his method is because it's one of the things that, right? You teach the thing that you didn't get.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Very true. It's very true.
And I'm hyper focused on it because I see in the older people that I met that if they just did feet exercises, whole life would get better.
The problem, that's it. Yeah.
And even my 90-year-olds and people like that, when I worked with their feet, they had better balance. So it's, when having real life situations and then real life study and then, with yourself and then improve yourself and then seeing the practice where you can improve and use the tools, like his tools are really cool. And
Excellent. They're great.
they're really good stuff. But anyways, that's where I'm at today. I'm glad to be able to share anything. I hope it helped anybody listening to this, and
Definitely.
keep going. Don't.
Gotta
And if
keep going.
just remember now we have 50,000 options of jeans to wear. There's a lot, worldwide, and a lot of people and they're so great that they're passionate about learning, and they're passionate about when the
Bring
way
away
they learned and
for
where
sure.
they're at, and like that, and just keep going because remember, it's not over yet.
Never, never over. It's a learning process every day, isn't it? But Michael, in closing, where can people find you if they would like to study with you or reach out to you?
Okay, so great. I'm in New York, and so you can get a hold of me at my email. So mjmatworks@gmail.com. MJ Matt Works. Okay, and then on Instagram at MattFit_NYC. So this is MATFIT_NYC. Again, at MattFit_NYC. So yeah, those are two places right now I have ability to get a hold of me and you. So if
Yeah.
they want to get a hold of you, you can get a hold of me too.
Yes, absolutely. But Michael, in closing, thank you so much. You're always so generous with your information, your innovation of the system, your understanding and your wisdom that you bring forth to your practice, but also to your students and to our community every day. So I cannot thank you enough. It's always a pleasure. Definitely have a second round of this for sure.
Thanks today. I'll speak to y'all soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, Michael. Bye.